Well, welcome back to Hard Truth with Ozzie Knezovich. Today, we're doing part two on our Antifa series. And as promised, in studio with me today is Jay Pounder. And Jay and I have worked on many issues over the years. We've worked on issues involving the extreme right, we've worked on issues involving the extreme left. And Jay, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are and what your involvement was with the riots in Spokane on May 31st of 2020 and how you kind of got involved in that.
Sure. Yes. Thanks for having me on, Ozzy. My role and how we got involved was born and raised here in Spokane. Love this area. Love the Pacific Northwest. And originally, I was a far right activist person, and I really kind of discovered the dangers of the far right and the far left. And I came out of the far right and basically was able to blow the whistle on a couple of key individuals in the area and eventually kind of became a center of the road balance kind of guy. But when things got rolling in with COVID and we started seeing some activity here in the Spokane area, myself and some other individuals felt it was our duty to go in and understand what these guys were really about. We knew the background of communism and Antifa. We knew that these were dangerous individuals. So we took it upon ourselves to create new personas and go in and embed ourselves with these people locally. And boy, did we learn a lot.
You basically were contacted and started contacting some people on the left, some in the fringe left, and one of the contacts that you made was an individual that was very much worried and concerned about the rhetoric that they were hearing at the time. And they gave you a lot of information during that time as far as what the extreme left had planned, because uh, the riots in Spokane really were generated by socialist and Antifa actors that the socialists actually brought into the area. So how in how deep were you able to get into their networks? Because if you could get as deep enough to develop personas, were you able to infiltrate any of their secure uh, social media platforms?
Absolutely. One of the things we did is we just went boots on the ground to start with. We went down to the various marches and various bars they hung out with, and we dressed like them. We talked like them. We learned where they were beginning to hang out with because we could see it from some of their social media feeds. And what we did is we went to those places and we began to understand how they were communicating. I mean, a lot of it was done via secure texting programs like Signal. Uh, they hadn't started using Telegram just yet, but what we did is we had a couple of key individuals that we made friends with, and they said, "Oh yeah, this is how we're all talking." And we were able to actually be invited to those chat groups, and we had complete access to their entire communication network within 12 hours. And the things we saw was they were talking about everything from wanting to create an autonomous protest zone in the Spokane area, all the way to the type of weapons they were creating, what they were planning as far as marches, what the upcoming riot was going to look like. And yeah, it's absolutely 100% correct that socialist groups, even Antifa groups like Rose City Antifa, were bringing in people to assist within those. And when we were seeing things beginning to unfold and they were planning a march into a riot, it was fascinating and terrifying all at the same time to see how their logic and their thinking works. It just those two don't connect very well together in their minds, but there's a lot of anger that they aren't getting what they want out of life and they're misdirected, and so they're easily swayed into these ideologies because they're fed this continual garbage diet of this ideology of communism and socialism, and this is going to be a utopia when this is all said and done. So by being in those groups and understanding where they were going, how they're going to execute it, what they were doing to execute it, it gave us a huge advantage in understanding how they were going to operate as a group. And there is leadership within Antifa. It's just not as cohesive with some of those groups.
You know, Jay, what you just described is very much the same as the far right. Disgruntled individuals not happy about their circumstances, and they get sucked into the vortex of the extremes, both either on the right or the left, and it's always going to be better. It's always going to be better, is what they're told. But what they fail to realize is what these groups are actually talking about is the destruction of the United States as we know it, period. And they want a total reset, and that generally doesn't go very well. Throughout history, there's really only one revolution that turned out where the people ended up with the power, and that was the revolution of the United States breaking away from the English. And you take a look at history, people want to say, well, what about the French Revolution? Yeah, let's talk about the French Revolution. How many heads got chopped off of people in the American Revolution versus how many people lost their heads during the French Revolution because they took it out on anybody that didn't agree with their doctrine, with that didn't agree with their narrative. But that didn't happen in the American Revolution because we had a constitution that said you have a right to have different views. Now, honestly, I think that there are times we take the freedom of speech thing maybe farther than the founders ever thought it would go, because I don't think that the founders ever envisioned free speech being labeled people marching in the streets shouting death to America and inciting insurrection and revolution. I really don't think that free speech was intended to go quite that far. But that's what we saw on the streets of Spokane during this whole riot that happened on May 31st. You literally had people talking revolution. You had people talking about tear it all down, burn it all down. And the most interesting aspect to that, for me at least, was how our media handled that, how the media actually came out on the side of Antifa and went, oh no, there's no such thing as Antifa, it's just an ideology. And you actually had conversations with some of our media in that. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, let me tell you, just leading up to that, I mean, when you are in with those crowds and they're moving around, it's very hive-like in mentality, and I can see how these disenfranchised kids, and I'm going to call them kids because that's what they are, were it's almost like a drug to them in a lot of ways, and some of them are ingest drugs before they go to these things because it just makes the the extreme violence that they begin to feel that much of more of a high because there's all the chemicals are released when your brain is in that environment. But leading in and coming out of this and talking with some members of the media behind the scenes on background, their idea was painted as if it doesn't exist, saying no, Antifa isn't real. And there's a couple articles both from the Inlander. There was a guy named Danny Walters who put out an article that he and I talked on background, and it's like, no, 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 you don't understand. They are real. I've been there. I've talked with them, and he's like, well, you can't prove that they are. It's like, well, no, they don't have papers walking around saying, hi, I'm Antifa, and here's my official membership card. That's not how this works. I mean, these guys study tradecraft, so they're trying to hide their identities, but they openly admit to being in these groups. I mean, I met members of Rose City Antifa here in Spokane. They had come here to foment rebellion, and our media is offering such a pedantic response to it, saying, "Oh, it's not real. It's not real. The sheriff, he's just making things up." To it. No, it 100% was real. We were in the streets with them. We talked with them. We saw the badges. We captured the data to prove that they were with these groups. And yet our Spokane media still denied that they actually were even there because there's not an official like clubhouse and a handshake to get you in. And it was absolutely pathetic, the media's response to it.
You mentioned the Inlander, and this is the article that we have up on the screen right now is Antifa is anonymous, militant, and ill-defined, but there's still little evidence that they're to blame for the riots in Spokane. That was written by Daniel Walters of the Inlander at the time. And then, you have an article that was written the day after the riots, and that article is from the Spokesman Review, which is titled Spokane Sheriff Police Chief Blames Sunday's Violence on Outside Agitators. And I can tell you that the Spokesman Review, the editor, Rob Curley, uh, very vehemently denies that Antifa was ever there. Matter of fact, said I didn't really know what I was talking about, and there was no proof, even though we gave them all the proof in the world. But if he would have read his own article, written by his folks from the Spokesman Review, he would have heard it straight from the then NAACP president, Curtis Robinson, which Curtis said, and I'll just read the article for you. Nonviolent demonstrations at the Spokane County Courthouse and the Red Wagon in Riverfront Park were definitely hijacked, and that's a quote from Robinson, definitely hijacked. President of the Spokane chapter of the NAACP said during a news conference with the city's mayor and police chief. What we saw here were some fringe groups, Robinson said. Some of them were bussed in, some of them were planted here, and maybe even some of them might actually be some Spokaneites who were kind of talked into it. The thing is, Jay, I talked to Robinson the day before this protest was supposed to happen, and he told me, he said, "Look, um, I know we got some problems because I told him, he says, we're hearing this is going to go violent." And he said, "I know, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to keep it calm. I'm trying to talk these people down, but some of them are just they're just hell bent on doing this." And the day after the riot, I called him again and said, "Look, Curtis, if that ever happens again, you're going to lose all support in Spokane because the people of Spokane County did not appreciate what happened in their city. And none of us did." And he was like, "Ozzie, I tried. I tried my best." But, the media has just always contradicted this. And it's always been kind of amazing to me in that aspect. But it really shouldn't be all that amazing because all it took was Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, saying that Antifa was involved, and the media just went berserk over that. Because Trump said it, it can't be true. And I'm like, "Hey, wait a minute, forget what President Trump said. Leaders throughout the United States, as far as law enforcement leaders, were telling you time and time again, from Green Bay all the way to DC and Spokane and back and everywhere in between, we're telling you we have Antifa on the ground causing trouble. Antifa on the ground with the Democratic Socialists causing trouble." And Jay, it's amazing. Who's at the center of all these anti-Israel protests, pro-Palestinian protests, if it's not the Democratic Socialists of America? And the same actors that brought you 2020's riots are bringing you the protest and now starting to become violent protests of the pro-Palestinian movement. They are all acting in the same vein, and it's amazing to watch this dynamic. But you were on the ground. Not only were you on the ground, but you were actually recruited by Antifa. Talk a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, so shortly after the main riot, a female made contact with me, and she and I began to talk via secure messaging. as well as uh, being, I mean, she would continue to be present at these functions. So these marches, she was there. Um, she was originally from the Portland area, had a relative in the area as well, and she was paid by Rose City Antifa to come to Spokane to recruit individuals and key people. And maybe because I, looked a little older than some of the other kids that were there. I mean, my appearance had changed, yeah, but I still was obviously older than a lot of them. So I think what she thought was she could find an older, trusted individual to help mentor these young kids who shared their ideology. And she told me multiple times, well, why don't you come down to Portland? We'll find a place for you to stay. We'll pay for you to be there. I mean, hey, she's like, I needed help, and they gave me 20 grand to help my dad up here in a check. So there is bank accounts associated with these organizations who are handing money to leaders to recruit other leaders to develop their network. So they're being funded. And obviously, I never had the opportunity to go down and go see them, or like some other journalists did. But the most disturbing part of this is that they were here in our area actively recruiting from the Democratic Socialists in the area. They were recruiting from John Brown Gun Club. They were recruiting from Socialist Rifles Association to pull these groups together into one big amalgamated terror network. And they wanted it here. They wanted it bad. They wanted it here. They wanted it in Court Lane. They wanted it in Boise. I mean, this gal and I talked lots, and I think she thought there was something there because at one point she invited me back to a hotel room and I said no. And that's when she stopped talking to me after that point. But up until that point, she and I had had about 6 to 8 discussions, long discussions, hour-long discussions, some via text, some via in person, where she's talking about what this is. And maybe I just didn't pass the ultimate test of being a dirtbag, but it's one of those that they were here. They were paying somebody to do this, and they were willing to throw money in order to create this. And you're right. These are the same people in our streets yelling death to America. I mean, you can take a look at the attack on the DNC headquarters in DC a couple nights ago. I mean, I laugh because they're eating their own, but at the same time, these guys are alive and well, and they're coming back. And the media is not paying attention, and they're not doing the right thing by exposing
The media tends to be, in my estimation, almost to the point where they're in a big quandary now because wait a minute, uh, these people that we basically deified and covered for in 2020, now they're talking anti-Semitic rhetoric. They're actually going after the DNC. Uh, they're they're going, what do we do now when these are the same people? And quite frankly, it's again, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the Democratic Socialists of America, which all acted together in 2020, are back at it with the pro-Palestinian movement. And people are like, oh, I'm so confused to how this could happen. Look, progressives hate anything that is good for America. They will support anything that tears down America. That is who progressive, left leaning socialists are. They want to destroy your country. No ifs, ands, buts, or ors about that. They want to destroy and tear down the United States. These are the same people walking in the streets in 2020 and in 2023 chanting death to America. They support a terrorist organization that is committed to destroying and killing all Christians and all Jews. It's just amazing to watch. And when you were on the ground, you took a lot of photographs that, and quite frankly, folks, Jay wasn't just on the ground. He was actually an active confidential informant for the sheriff's office when I was sheriff of Spokane County. He gave us all that information. And we have photographs, and the one that we have on the screen right now is a group of individuals walking across the Monroe Street Bridge, and this individual has an Antifa patch, Antifa insignias all over their hard hats, which is another Antifa earmark, carrying a gas mask, and you can literally see the antenna of the communication equipment that they were using. And Jay, you had actually infiltrated their communication network, and you had sent us the channel that you were listening to their command and control on. How did you end up with that?
Well, I mean, it's not a glorious story, but we were walking up with them. We started talking with them, and we were wearing some of their same logo, same gear. We're like, oh man, we really got to coordinate with you. We're going to go attack the courthouse. And we just flat out asked them for it. And they're like, yeah, man, here you go. And it was, they gave us the frequency, and we plugged it in, and we could hear their entire chatter. Nothing, no channel offset, no anything. They thought they were so cool by using radios to communicate. They didn't realize they'd just given the enemy their communication stuff, and that's why it's powerful that we can, that you can listen into these guys, because then we knew exactly what they were doing, where they were going, what their next moves were. And you can see it in some of the footage from the very first riot, is that the leaders are all carrying ham radios on their lapels. Yeah, you can see the antenna in that particular photo, and they are actively communicating and coordinating where to do, where to go. And they're telling Group A, Group B, Group C. They never called anybody by name, but they were coordinating what they were supposed to do. They're talking about flanking law enforcement. They're talking about going around the backside of this building and, potentially throwing, incendiary devices at buildings to distract law enforcement so they can go around here and do something else. I mean, this was a well planned, well coordinated attack on Spokane during the main riot. I mean, this was an invading force coming into our city, and this is what they did. And people, when our media is saying they didn't exist, no, this was a attack by an occupying force in our city.
Right. And you can see the communication gear right here. I mean, that's an earpiece. And Jay, I did press conferences and showed the media all this. Oh no, still not enough evidence. Still not enough evidence to see what people were talking about.
That picture's in a bar in Spokane. That's the thing. It's like this. That picture is in a bar here in Spokane. That's where we went to this bar, because we recognized the bathroom mirror and went, oh, we know exactly where that is. And we went to this place, and that's how we started meeting these people. They're not particularly intelligent about operational security, but the same fact remains, is we had a constitutional duty to protect our community. So we, as non-commissioned whatever, we were not cops. We were just a bunch of guys saying, not in our town, you're not going to do this. And we knew the right thing to do was help you guys get the data you need to stop these guys, especially these. Oh man, you got this logo on the screen. It infuriates me when I see it, because that's our clock tower. That is our riverfront park. It is not theirs, and we're not going to allow that in Spokane. Not now, and not ever. Ever. If they try it again, we'll figure them out. And the fact that they've got a gun and they've got a pickaxe, it's, yeah.
People don't realize the symbology of this logo, if you will. It is reminiscent, and it is a, a mere facsimile of the former Soviet Union's logos. And people just don't quite understand that. Here's an example of some of what you were talking about as far as your infiltration of their communication network. Uh, why don't you talk about this one, Jay?
Yeah, so this is a one of the many screenshots we were able to provide to you guys, that we were receiving these from the leadership planning these riots, planning the events. I mean, this particular individual is local, still local from what I understand. Still hasn't been arrested for his roles within this, and this is what they want to do. We aren't protesting; we're storming and taking over the city. That was a very common theme, and this is within a chat group that this is all going on, and this is being posted, and other people are reading this, and they're talking back and forth, and they're talking about what they want to do. And it says that Trump literally declared war on Antifa. Congratulations, yeah. But at the same time, that just made him even angrier and even more provoked. Um, and let me tell you, I had hundreds of screenshots like this that we watched them do this. We watched them encourage. We had a chat group that was, I mean, I would say that chat was a mile long in terms of messages about how they're exchanging ideas and what they're going to do and how we're doing it. We're going to go out there and burn things down. And, I mean, there was even discussion of arming themselves and shooting back at the cops as the cops are shooting with rubber bullets. I mean, all that was in there, and they feed off of this. One person says something and then just lights off a firestorm in terms of everything else.
It's eerie how some of the similar language is used by the extreme left as the same as the extreme right when they talk about exercising our constitutional right to overthrow a tyrannical government. When you're out there destroying things, that's not the government being tyrannical, saying that we're going to stop you. uh, you're actually a terrorist group at that point. And when you start talking about attacking a city, then moving on out to Fairchild, which is a military base, you want to attack it, and then the rest of the United States, you're not acting as some kind of freedom fighter, folks. You're a terrorist. That's all there is to it. You are a terrorist. The majority of America does not feel the way that you feel. And it's time for the majority of America to start standing up and talking about what's going on. Talk a little bit about this particular dialogue.
Yeah, so this is like I said, the amalgamation of all these things coming together within a chat group. With you had Rose City people in there. Yeah, they had begun dialoguing with the Spokane, Washington chapter of the John Brown Gun Club. These are folks who believe in communism and socialism, have actively purchased weapons, trained with the weapons at local shooting ranges around here, and they're talking about providing security to an anonymous protest zone that they actually want to put in a fairly new development just south of the courthouse. They actually wanted to set up armed guards and shift rotations and become an occupying force, much like they did in Seattle. And they thought they could accomplish that here. Um, the quote at the bottom, oh, I'm pretty big in a socialist Facebook group here. I might have some folks here. I mean, there are some very, very violent individuals with long criminal histories that are involved within these. And if I mean, they couldn't get a foothold. We were working on getting, obviously taking care of that, but they wanted to employ these people to be armed thugs that would potentially kill law enforcement or civilians who tried to stop this. This was a chat group that there was a lot of people in this group representing a lot of really bad groups in the area. There was Democratic Socialists, there were Satanists, there were communists, Antifa, Spokane Antifa, Coeur d'Alene Antifa. There was Rose City Antifa, Emerald City Antifa was involved in that. I mean, these guys had all come together, and those main groups, Emerald City, Rose City, and Spokane, they were coaching these young people on what they needed to do to accomplish what they had done in Seattle and what they had done in Philadelphia as well. They thought this was going to be almost like an Alamo to them in some shape or form.
You got that information to us. I at the same time asked you to send a message back to them and tell them that it will last 5 minutes. This isn't Seattle. This is Spokane County. It will last 5 minutes because we would have dismantled them very quickly. And we made sure that they understood that. We drove that point home to them that not here, not in Spokane, won't happen, and I can assure you it will last a total of 5 minutes.
Yeah, we were able to provide that saying, we don't think this is a good idea. The team and I were that we were working this all together. We were really concerned that this group of people that they were going to get hurt. They had no idea that yes, that you're right. Not here, not this city, not ever, not with this sheriff, not with this police chief. And they thought they could take you guys on, but we were able to talk them down, and hopefully some lives were saved because of that. Um, these were young people who had made some bad choices, and hopefully, maybe we wised them up a little bit in that particular circumstance.
Jay, I'm going to try something here. I'm going to try to play a video for you. If you want to do some narration, feel free.
We're gonna bring the tyrant down.
What you're seeing here is one of multiple different marches. And that particular individual in the screen is actually a professor here in the Eastern Washington area at Eastern Washington University. Um, his background, he teaches in their civics department, and he says something in particular here. We're going to take down the tyrant. And he was a key speaker at these events. His students were very active. A lot of people we were in contact with were his students and were active in his classes during the school year. And we also had more recently, this particular individual has become active again. He's been seen meeting with these people again. But at the same time, it's on campus out at Eastern Washington University, and we understand that he is um, still playing the role that he played during this particular time frame. He is an insurrectionist. He's trying to get things stirred up in this particular environment, and these people were mad, and he was whipping them into a frenzy with his speech.
It hasn't changed, like you said, doing the same thing with the pro-Palestinian issues within the United States. You're hearing it all over again. And, what amazed me when I was talking with Rob Curley, one of the last times I had a conversation with Curley, was that by that point, which was the fall of 22, he had almost gone to the point where, well, there really wasn't a riot in Spokane. Uh, the problem is many of these are photographs that his folks took, and it looks pretty much like a riot to me. I mean, Jay, when's the last time you needed a gas mask and a sledgehammer at a peaceful protest?
I can't think of one. I've been in peaceful protests. I've gone and seen things. I've never seen a sledgehammer, a riot, a bat with nails in it, um, crowbar that had spikes welded on it. I mean, you name it. We saw every bit of makeshift weapon, and some of these guys were carrying illegally obtained handguns, and they openly admitted to it to us. And so, no, this was absolutely absurd. This was a riot, and Rob was dead wrong in how he diagnosed it.
The cones that these people are carrying, that wasn't to block a street, folks. That was, they used the cones to put over uh, gas grenades that launched from law enforcement to keep the CS gas from being able to spread.
I think I might have dropped out there for you, but you were right about the cones. Um, and some of the chats that we were privy to, they were teaching uh, other Antifa folks were teaching them how to mix containers that would actually contain fluid that would make that gas inert. So once they put the cone over it, they taught the kids how to pour the stuff in to actually disable the gas itself. Uh, Backpacks, you got that picture up on the screen right now. This, well, let's just go to this one right here because this particular photo, Antifa was great about teaching the kids to call themselves medics. Uh, I know that you're a former Army medic trained in, all sorts of techniques for field medic. These guys were none of that. Um, in those bags was not medical gear. They had everything from cans of soup They had rocks, they had bottles, they had Molotov cocktails. They were not medics, but they would hide under the guise of being a medic. That, oh, if somebody else got hurt by the police, I can help them. They didn't even have, I mean, they didn't even have any gear to even be able, they didn't have a trauma collar, they didn't have gauze. I mean, we knew that this is absurd. They're not medics. And they use this to hide the fact that, oh, look, the police are hurting us. We're just trying to offer medical care. No, that's absurd. And I know that it seems like we're being patronizing a little bit about them, but this is what they do. This is what they're doing now. I sat there and watched footage on Twitch the other night of what happened at the DNC headquarters, and they were dressed exactly the same. Exactly the same. So yeah, no. This is what we saw here. This is why we did what we did. Because not in our city. Not now, not ever.
And it just doesn't seem to change very much going into the future. Again, the same actors playing out in the Palestinian uh, issues. You have Black Lives Matter that are supporting Hamas, and this is a, a tweet that they put out. This is this is a direct slap in the face of every Israeli, every Jewish person across the world when the Black Lives Matter puts out a paraglider, a tweet of a picture of a paraglider, which was used by Hamas to infiltrate Israel and kill babies. I mean, these people are promoting the killing of infants, beheading infants. And Hamas wants to kill every Jew. This isn't about any liberation because, quite frankly, Palestine was never a country. Not once was in history was it a country. It's always been an occupied area, uh, especially after the Romans kicked the Jewish people out of Israel. Uh, this is nothing but genocide is what they're talking about here. And these left-leaning groups, BLM, the Democratic Socialists, are all about this. They're all promoting this hatred. And Jay, a few months ago, there was all kinds of people that leaned on the right side that said some anti-Semitic things and got slapped by the media, rightly so in many cases. But where's the media slapdown of these people? Where's the media outrage of these people that are actually condoning and supporting the killing of Jews? And let me add one more category. That would be Christians too. They want to kill all Christians, and they want to also kill all Americans. So tell me where the difference between insurrection anymore, folks, that definition of insurrection. Because when you're promoting entities that want to destroy the United States, in my book, that is promoting insurrection. You can't have it both ways, and that's what we're seeing anymore. Uh, this individual that's holding this cell phone, flashing a swastika at the Jewish protests across the street. Uh, they are nothing more than Nazis. They are promoting the same ideology. They are I and I'm going to say this. They are mirroring white supremacist. Where is the condemnation of this? I mean, this is no different than this. There's no difference here. They have made it no difference. The Democratic Socialists, Black Lives Matter, and the Aryan nations are all saying the same thing, and you're all hate groups, and you want to destroy America. And Jay, all I can say is thank you for the service you did to the Spokane area, for helping us get on top of what was happening, be prepared for what was going to happen, and ultimately, their protest was short-lived because started at 6 o'clock. By 2:30 that morning, we had taken control of the streets back. That was the Spokane County Sheriff's Office, SPD, the Spokane Police Department, and agencies from North Idaho and across Eastern Washington, along with the National Guard, fastest activation of the National Guard in the history of the state of Washington. And we had our streets taken back by 2:30 that evening, and they didn't set up an autonomous zone. And we were prepared to do that, quite frankly, because of your group, the people that you worked with, to help us prepare to protect our community. You are an unsung hero that now that this is going to come out, cat's kind of going to be out of the bag. You're going to have a big target on you, but you and your group deserve a lot of thanks from the citizens of Spokane County for the service you provided in helping us protect our community. So thank you very much for what you did.
Hey, I was born in this town. I hope I get to die in this town. I love this town, and I hate to see what's going on back then, and I hate to see what's going on now. Um, it's a humble honor to serve. It is, and I want my children to know what Spokane is about. I want my grandchildren, hopefully, to know what Spokane's about, and I hope that people watch this and they become inspired to do good things in their community and to know they have a constitutional duty to protect their community, back law enforcement who's just trying to make their lives better, and to work together with them hand in hand. This stuff is dangerous. I was just in Chicago last week, and let me tell you, the things I saw, if they ever come here, it will be terrifying. The things I saw and experienced back there. So you know what? I'm glad I got the opportunity to help. I really am.
Well, again, thank you very much for that help. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you to wake up. You know, the city of Spokane, the citizens of the city of Spokane, I wish you would have come out and voted. I wish you would have voted and to protect your community, your city. You just elected an individual as mayor that is sympathetic to everything that we just showed in this video. They are sympathetic to this, and this is what they want for you. I can't believe that that election went the way it did. You, I made it very clear in episode 1 and 2 of this podcast series that you could elect a communist that worked against your government as mayor, and you did. You did that. I'm amazed. But, because of citizens like Jay, I still have great hope for that area, and that area will stand up to what sadly is going to be a very bad, ugly 4 years for Spokane. Because what these people have planned for you, uh, just take a look at Seattle, because that's where you're heading. Jay, thanks for being on air. Thanks for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, just something for y'all to think about. This is Hard Truth with Ozzie Knezovich. Have a great day.